Welcome to Between the Now and the Next podcast. I'm your host, Heather Justice. Have you ever had a dream and thought, what in the world does that mean? Today's episode may be able to help you answer that. Psychotherapist and Christian counselor of 19 years, Ara Trembly, is ready to dive into conversation around his new book titled Dreaming God's Way, a biblically informed guide through the fascinating world of our dreams and their meanings in our lives. Ara's therapeutic approach hinges on the idea that the God of our conscious life is also the God of our unconscious life. I can't wait to talk about this more with him. His particular areas of research include dreams and dream interpretation, marital issues, as well as interpersonal stress and its effects on both mental and physical health. In addition to providing psychodynamic therapy, he has hypnotized more than 1,000 people and views hypnosis as a legitimate, effective tool for mental health and not a form of entertainment. I know that I've got at least one dream that I'm excited to talk with him about. So like we always do on this podcast, let's hang out together as you listen to my conversation with our new friend, Ara Trembly. Hi, Ara. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for coming on.
Hello, Heather. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yes. So this book fascinates me. And I have to know, at this point in your career, because you're very far along in your career, you had so much experience. I'm just curious, what led you to write this book at this point in your career?
Yeah. And, the whole subject of dreams and dream interpretation has been fascinating to me since well before I became a psychologist. In college, I remember that I used to write down my dreams. When I'd have dreams, I would write them down, and then I would try and figure out what they meant. What could this possibly mean? Why am I imagining that I'm driving down a road in a washing machine? Why is that happening? And I did a lot of reading of Carl Gustav Jung, who Jung is in terms of dream interpretation, probably best known of any psychologist. And so that helped me a lot. But also, I was coming from a place of faith. So I wanted to know, in the Bible, God helps people interpret dreams, but sometimes people interpret dreams without any help from God. But dreams are extremely important. As I went along in my education, I realized that I got a great education in psychology. Nobody pays attention to dreams anymore. Or I shouldn't say nobody, but very few therapists pay attention to dreams anymore. There are obviously some like myself who do.
Yeah.
But if you look in textbooks, and especially in graduate textbooks, you won't find anything about dreaming in there. And I think that we've really lost something there. Dreams really are a gift from God. God really does speak to us through our dreams. The Bible confirms that he's spoken to many people in the Bible through their dreams. And there's no reason why that can't be happening today. But even if God is not speaking to you through your dreams still have important information and can tell you about things that are going on in your own unconscious mind that will really help you if you pay attention.
Yeah. And I think that's interesting too, because everybody dreams, but I think a lot of people don't remember their dreams. And so they wake up and they think, these people that talk about dreaming all the time, I don't ever have dreams. I don't ever remember my dreams. Does that reveal anything about somebody? Like when you can't remember your dreams, does that mean anything?
No, it really doesn't. Because all that means is when people say, I never dream, they are dreaming. All right. There's been enough research that people have been in sleep labs long enough that we know people are dreaming. But if people say, I don't remember their dreams, I completely believe that, because unless you really want to remember your dreams and think about it, you may not, unless it's something like a horrible nightmare that you can't get the image out of your head or something like that. So when people say to me, I don't remember my dreams, what I suggest to them is tonight before you go to bed, just, as you're drifting off to sleep, just say to yourself a few times, I'm going to remember my dreams. I'm going to remember my dreams. Just say that to yourself. Most times that will work. Most times you will wake up and you will remember the dream that you had. As soon as you wake up, you remember the dream. And usually it's the most memorable dreams are the ones we have often before we wake up in the morning. All right, but the
Hmm.
dream, the memory of the dream will fly away fast. So you want to record that dream. You want to either write. I used to write it down, but you could record it on your phone or on another recording device. So when people say I don't dream, yes, they are dreaming. But people say I don't remember my dreams. It's just a matter of wanting to remember your dreams and applying your mind to doing that.
Yeah. And so does that have some kind of connection? Like when you're telling yourself, I want to remember my dream, I want to remember my dream. Is that
Mhm.
any type of connection between your conscious and your unconscious mind?
Yeah, because what's happening is everything you say to yourself, your conscious mind hears, of course, but your unconscious mind hears it as well. And the unconscious mind is usually pretty cooperative. And really, what you're doing a little hypnosis on yourself. You're making a suggestion. All right. All hypnosis is, it's about suggestion. So you're making a suggestion to yourself. I'm going to remember my dreams tonight. I'm going to remember my dreams. All right. I might not have before, but tonight I'm going to. And most times it will happen. If you really want to remember your dreams, you will.
That's so interesting. That is so
Yes, it's
interesting.
fascinating.
Yeah, it really is. The brain just fascinates me. And so
Yes.
this is so interesting. You talked a little bit about this already, but how does this book reflect the intersection between your clinical work and your faith?
One of the things I offer in the book is how to understand and steps to interpreting your own dreams. But when I was writing this, I realized that I could just do a kind of a Jungian book, and here's how Jung would do it, or I could do a Freudian book. Oh, I wouldn't do that, but I could. But then I realized, no, I want to use the model that's the most successful, and the model that's the most successful is the biblical model. All right.
Yeah.
You'll notice that when dreams are interpreted in scripture, for example, when Joseph of the Old Testament interprets Pharaoh's dreams,
Yes.
you don't hear Pharaoh saying, nah, that's impossible. No, that's a
Mhm.
crazy interpretation. You don't hear him say anything like that.
Nope.
Okay. Because he knows it hits right home.
Mhm.
And I thought of how does the Lord interpret dreams, right? Through people like Joseph. And really it's through symbols. It's through
Mhm.
symbols that take place. So in Pharaoh's dream, there was symbol of the cow, the fat cattle, and skinny cattle, and the sheaves of wheat, and there are all kinds of symbols. And since Egypt was an agrarian society, that made total sense to Pharaoh.
Yeah.
That this is what
Yeah.
that refers to. So symbols are really the key to interpreting dreams. And the important thing to remember about symbols is that they don't always mean the same thing for everybody. There are hundreds of books out there that are like little encyclopedias. And you look up, a symbol and it tells
Yes.
you what it means. The problem with that is a symbol that means something to me may mean something completely different to you or to somebody else.
Yeah.
For example, the symbol of the cross, as Christians, we see a symbol of the cross. Well, that represents Jesus, or represents the church. All right. But if you're an ambulance driver, maybe it means the Red Cross to you. Or you're a
Sure.
relief
Yeah.
worker, maybe it means the Red Cross. Or if you're a truck driver, maybe it just means a crossroads. You come to a
Yeah.
crossroads, you can go straight left or right. The same symbol means different things to different people. So when you're interpreting your dream, if I'm interpreting someone else's dream and they tell me about, and I see some symbols in their dreams, the first thing I'll ask is, well, what does that mean to you? What does the cross mean to you? Because I
Yeah.
don't want to assume that it means the same thing that I think it means. Symbols are very personal.
Yeah.
They're very personal. And again, that's why in the Bible, you never see people whose dreams are interpreted saying, nah, that can't be. No, I don't accept your interpretation. That never happens
Right.
because they're always meaningful symbols.
I've just never thought about that before. I've never
Yeah.
thought about how the symbols can mean different things to different people. And you're
Yes.
right. Right when you said that, I was like, yeah, like used to when I had dreams, I would go, okay, Google, I just had a dream about whatever and type in these things, right?
Yes.
Like the symbols or whatever. What does this mean? And you're right. The symbols, they're different for everybody. And so looking at a dream
Yes.
interpretation book that's like an encyclopedia, it's going to tell you whoever wrote the book what that symbol basically means to them, right?
Exactly. Yes.
So, wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah. It's fascinating.
It is. We talked about the conscious and unconscious mind. And you talk about this idea that God is the God of our conscious life and is also the God of our unconscious life. So
Yes.
can you unpack that a little bit for us?
I don't know, but I'll try. The unconscious mind, okay, we should talk about that a little bit. The
Yes.
conscious mind is the mind that we're using right now. You and I are using it to talk to each other, and I'm using it to talk to your listeners. That's the conscious mind. But the unconscious mind is what takes over when the conscious mind is asleep, when we're sleeping, or
Hmm.
sometimes when we're when our mind just wanders and we're not paying attention to what's going on. The unconscious mind is a different level of perception. All right. So the unconscious mind often will perceive things that the conscious mind ignores.
Mm,
Because look, at our conscious minds, we have to keep things in order. We have to keep things straight. We can't think of every association with something that goes on because that would overwhelm us. I give this example in the book. If I see a billboard on the highway that said circus coming to town this week, my conscious mind thinks, oh, hell, it might be great to take my grandkids to, right? But
sure.
my unconscious mind could be flashing back to an experience I had at the circus when I was a kid and all the smells, the popcorn and the acts, the animal acts and the
Yeah.
clowns. I could be doing all this, but I'm driving. Okay. Let all that, I can't let all that flood my mind because I'll just run off the road into a
Yeah.
ditch and hopefully survive. That's why dreams are a window into that unconscious mind because when I'm sleeping, I'm not doing anything else. I'm
Hmm.
just letting my unconscious mind express itself. One of the examples I give in the book is about the famous golfer Jack Nicklaus, who he was playing in a tournament and he was having trouble with his swing. So after the day's play was over, he went out onto the driving range and tried to figure out what was going on. Hit hundreds of golf balls, I don't know, but he couldn't figure it out. But that night when he was sleeping, he had a dream about his swing and about something he could do to correct it. And he remembered this and he put it into practice the next day and it worked perfectly for him. All right. So a problem that he had was solved by his unconscious mind knew what was going on, but his conscious mind didn't. So
Yeah.
his unconscious mind told him and he remembered it. And his remark was, hey, when you're asleep, you don't have anything else to do. So you might as well work on your problems and your dreams.
There you
Very
go.
practical.
That's so good. Can you give us some examples of maybe how God works through things that we're often unaware of, like the unconscious patterns or our inner conflicts?
Yeah. Yeah. Boy, I'll give you an example. This is a dream that one of my patients had. So this was a lady who middle aged, in her 30s, maybe 40, middle aged woman. And her parents had divorced during her adolescence, and that was very traumatic for her. And she had experienced a traumatic divorce herself afterwards. She had gotten married and had a traumatic divorce. She had this dream over and over. That's important. If you have a dream over and over, that's your mind telling you, this is really important. Pay attention.
Mm,
So here's her dream. She says, I'm walking at twilight down a long row of trees toward a cheerful, brightly lit house at the end of a country lane. As I draw near, I can hear children playing, and through a large picture window, I can see a loving couple doing ordinary things, conversing, setting the table, or embracing. I press my face to the window and watch their happiness with great longing. But I am invisible to them and must leave before the night falls. Right? And it's a very sad dream.
yeah.
Strong emotions of longing and sadness and happiness denied. There's symbols there, right? The house in the country and the loving couple. She said that symbolizes what I've lost. What I lost
Wow.
when my father left the house and when my husband left. She says that's what I lost. It symbolizes all that. And the night falling at the end symbolized her falling into depression, that's where she was. She was depressed
Wow.
right there. But the great thing was this gave her insight into her depression. Here's why I'm depressed.
Mm,
Here's what I'm longing for. Here's what I've been knocked down twice. But this same patient, later reported that after she entered into that she entered into a happy, stable marriage and the dream stopped. It never returned. Right. So
wow.
yes, it was just incredible for her. So yeah, and we have more such dreams in the book, but
Yes.
that's really she would be the first to tell you that that dream was from God. She said, that was the Lord telling me, here's what's wrong in your life. You
Hmm.
already know this, but I'm going to tell you here's what's wrong in your life. And
Yeah.
here's the road back.
Wow.
So, and it was wonderful to be able to be part of that with her.
Yes. And that's so important that you say that. Like, she already knew what was going on, but God was like, I'm going to confirm this. Like, I'm going to help you
Yes.
understand and confirm. And I hear often, like, sometimes we all get in this mood. Well, let me not generalize. We don't all get in it, but I know many people, including myself, that we
Yeah.
get in this state of feeling down or on the verge of falling into a depression. But why? Like, I can't figure out or put my finger on it. Things feel fine or things look okay on the outside. Why am I
Right.
feeling like I'm about to go into a depression?
Yes.
And so that's very interesting about that. It can be revealing to these feelings that we have. And if we can't put our finger on it, then make sure you're saying, I want to remember my dreams tonight. And maybe God will reveal that to us. That's incredible. That's awesome. I hear stories like this and I continue to be so thankful and so grateful and in awe, I guess, of how God always finds ways to communicate with us. He
Mm.
always finds ways. It's not just through prayer or through his word, but it can be through dreams and through other people that come up and talk to us. And, he
Mhm.
revealed something that maybe that person didn't even know, right? That we were struggling with or dealing with. But it's like we just happened to have a conversation with somebody
Yes.
and it's what they
Yes.
needed and the confirmation they were looking for. I
Yes.
love,
Yes.
I love
God
that.
really does work in strange ways sometimes. Yeah.
He really does. He really does. You were talking about the reoccurring dreams. And so if you're having these reoccurring dreams, then this is something that's like, this is important. You need to pay attention to this.
Yes.
So I have actually an experience with that. And after the fact, like years later, I saw and understood like why I kept having this dream. But I was in a relationship and this relationship ended very, very traumatically. And it was not great, but that led me to write my book that I wrote, the 90-Day Devotional on Healing from Emotional Abuse. And so
Wonderful.
I took that and turned it into something that's hopefully a powerful resource for other people to overcome that. But that relationship that I was in, I later found out that he had been cheating on me with other
Yeah.
people. I had a reoccurring dream at least 2 times, if not more, that in my dream, I saw him with another woman and I confronted him and I was like, "What is going on? Why are you, out to dinner with her? Why are you at this concert? Or why are you with this other person?"
Right.
And he was like, "Well, I love her and I'll never love you like I love her." And this
Wow.
dream, it happened twice. And I remember waking up from those dreams and I was crying when I woke up. It was that real.
Yes.
And I remember because we were still together, obviously, at this time that I had these dreams. For me, I was putting that off as like, this is my own insecurity. I'm insecure. I'm thinking that he's going to cheat on me. So, like, of course, I'm going to have dreams about this or whatever. So, I was
Right.
placing that and saying that was my own insecurities. And I would even tell him about this, right? And like, I told him, oh my gosh, I had these dreams and I was so upset. And he's like, oh no, it's only me and you. It's just us. Like, there's nobody
Right.
else. And then I find out later after the relationship ended that this was actually the case. And so,
Yes.
that has taught me such a lesson to be so
Hmm.
in tune with what I dream because the Lord, I really feel like that was the Lord trying to reveal that to me and say, daughter, open your eyes. Please. There were so many things that the Lord tried to rescue me out of that relationship sooner than I got out. I just was not taking the information he was giving me and trying to, make excuses for it and put on rose colored glasses and all of that.
Mm.
But
Sure.
that right there taught me so much to be so in tune with what I dream that don't just push it off and say, ugh, it was just a dream.
Hmm.
Like really, really lean into that. So fascinating to me.
Yeah. And I suspect that for some time, your unconscious mind was catching little cues and clues that something was going on. Okay. But
Absolutely.
you were probably just shoving that aside, saying, "Oh no, come on, that's
Hmm.
yeah." But when finally, God said, "Let me give you a look into your own unconscious mind. Here's what you're picking up."
Hmm.
God showed you what you were picking up, but He showed it to
Yeah,
you. He said,
that's right.
"Now you see," and sure enough, that's what it was. So that's a wonderful example. Marvelous. I
That's it.
wish I had put it in my book. It's a great one.
Well, feel free. I give you permission here publicly on this podcast to use it. If you need to write another book on
Marvelous.
dreams, there you go.
Marvelous. That could happen. Yes.
Feel free. Something else that happened within the last year, I had a dream. And again, it was about me. Like it was me in this dream. It was that ex again. Same kind
Yeah.
of situation. Like I show up to his apartment. He's there. And there was a bunch of friends, guy friends of his. And then there was this woman and he was like, hey, I'll be right back. And him and this woman went in another room and all of his friends were looking at me. And I'm like, is that one of y'all's girlfriends? And he was like, not our girlfriend.
Mm.
And I was like, what? And so I woke up from that dream. Well, immediately when I woke up from that dream, the Lord put a friend of mine on my heart. And I was like, that's weird. I don't know why I wake up thinking about her. That's interesting. And so immediately I just texted her. I was like, hey, friend, just thinking about you. I love you. I hope you have a great day. You were just on my mind this morning. She goes,
Right.
your timing is divine. She had been with this man for over 5 years. And she said, I just told him to get out of my house.
Oh.
She said, we ended things. He literally just left. I said, what? Like, how long ago? And she's like, 5 minutes ago. I just sat down on the couch. And she
Huh.
found out he had been cheating on her. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, isn't that amazing? I had this dream about that had nothing to do with me this time.
Right.
And then the Lord brought that friend to my mind immediately when I
Yes.
woke up, and I just reached out and let her know I was thinking of her and I loved her, and she needed that encouragement that morning because literally was just going through that. I'm just in awe, like I said, of how amazing God is that when we
Mhm.
make that decision to be attuned to what is
Right.
happening and to what he wants to say to us and speak to us or through us, that he does it.
Yeah. And that's a great example of minds and hearts being in tune with one another because, one of the
Yeah.
things I mentioned in that book, telepathy does happen. You can't just make it happen, but it does happen sometimes. And I
Yeah.
give some examples of where it's happened to me, but that's a great example of that happening. It's God just saying, hey, you know what? Why don't you call your friend? And boom, there, and right after this dream about infidelity. Okay. It's just incredible what God has for us if we'll only be willing to seek it out.
So I feel like a lot of Christians can't really reconcile with hypnosis. Let's talk about that a little bit. Let's dig into
Sure.
that.
Sure.
How can we reconcile that as Christians? I feel like some people see that as like new age or
Yes.
something like that. Let's talk about that from like a faith-based
Yeah.
perspective, a
Yeah.
Christian perspective.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
good. Hypnosis, I have to explain this all the time because you're right. Some Christians are like, isn't that like sorcery? And I'm like,
Right.
well, no, it isn't.
Right.
So what is it? What hypnosis is simply a state of being very relaxed and very focused. That's what it is. Very relaxed and very focused so that the person who's hypnotizing you can make suggestions, helpful suggestions. So if I'm hypnotizing somebody to stop smoking, which is one of the things that hypnosis is very successful at, once they're very relaxed and we've gone through what we call progressive relaxation, your head's relaxing, your shoulders, your belly, your legs, you're very relaxed. We get
Mhm.
into that state and we do that so that the conscious mind will check out. The
Mm.
conscious mind will say, "Oh, I've had enough of this. Let me know when this is over." Okay.
Yeah.
But then the unconscious mind is there, and that's where we can do things. And with people who want to stop smoking, we tell them a number of things. We reinforce that yes, you want to stop smoking. It's a great thing you're doing for yourself, and your health is going to be so much better. But I also tell them, if you try to smoke, you take a puff on a cigarette, you will start coughing uncontrollably. You'll feel sick to your stomach and it'll be horrible for you. So when I do that with people afterwards, they'll say, I will say to them, don't forget, because sometimes they don't remember. Don't forget that I told you that if you try to smoke a cigarette, you will start coughing uncontrollably and you'll get sick. But some people just have to try it.
Mm.
All right. And they do. And then I had had people come back and report to me, you were right. As soon as I took a puff of that cigarette, I just got so sick. I was coughing. I couldn't stop.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a useful therapeutic tool. All right.
Yeah.
Is it mentioned in the Bible? Yes, it is. All right. God does hypnosis twice in the Bible. God himself, once when he does surgery on Adam to remove his rib. And the next in Acts 10:10, this is when he puts Peter into a trance to basically to tell him that the things that he thought were unclean are now clean. Okay. So he's kind of educating. Hey, no, this is the way you've always been, but this is the way it's going to be. All right. So, and the word trance is used in scripture. So if God puts people into trances, it's obviously not inherently wrong to do this.
Hmm.
Right. Now we're all sinners. So if I try to use, if I try to make destructive or negative suggestions, usually people will reject those.
Hmm.
Okay. You probably heard it said that you won't do anything under hypnosis that you wouldn't do normally. And that's generally true. You won't. Right.
Interesting.
So yeah. Yeah. So again, hypnosis is a therapeutic tool.
Wow. When most people think of hypnosis, like I mentioned in the intro, you don't use it for
Right.
entertainment purposes.
No.
And I think that is what most of society is used to seeing hypnosis used as, is just like, oh, I'm
Yes.
going to this cool like entertainment show or whatever. And they
Right.
grab somebody from the audience and made them dance around the
Right.
room and cluck like a chicken or whatever. Uh,
That's the classic right there.
right. And so, yeah. So I feel like in Christian circles, I feel like that people think that it's a way of manipulating or using it for humiliation or stuff like that,
Hmm.
just because of the fact that what they're used to seeing is in the entertainment industry.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And I actually participated in one, not as the hypnotist, but as somebody who supposedly got hypnotized. So what I can tell you is that we what'll happen is they'll call people up from the audience, and then they'll select a number of people. Then they'll maybe he'll get it down to 5 or 6 or 10 people
Hmm.
that are going to be up there. So what are they looking for? And you might think, well, they're looking for people who are the most suggestible, who are going to be easy to manipulate. But
That's what I
no,
would
that's not what
think.
they're looking for. No, what they're looking for is people who want to be part of the show and make people laugh. That's what they want. All
Interesting.
right.
Okay.
So the show that I was in, where I went up on the stage, this was done by a guy called the Amazing Kreskin, who was very well known. He died just recently. He died, but he was a great guy. I had to meet him and talk with him, and he's a great guy. But he said to us, I remember he said to us, "All right, when I snap my fingers, you will all be a tree." Okay. So he snaps his fingers, and then he would come up with the microphone, and he comes up to me like, "What kind of tree are you?" I said, "I'm an oak. I'm a strong oak." Now, did I feel compelled to say that? No.
Hmm.
Did I feel like I was in a trance, in some kind of altered state in any way? No.
Hmm.
Okay. I just wanted to be part of the show. And other people too. The funniest part was he hands out eyeglasses, all right, eyeglasses that have no lenses in them, right?
Hmm.
But he says, all right, when you put these eyeglasses on, you'll be able to see through the clothing of anyone you look at. All right. Come on, seriously? So we all put our eyeglasses on. All right. I'm not seeing anything, right? But
Right.
there's a woman sitting next to me. I just happened to glance over at her, and she covered herself up because she thought I could see her. And I thought, well, so that it's suggestion, but mostly it's just people who want to be part of it and have a good time.
Yeah.
And are they hypnotized? No, not really. Not really.
Very interesting. That's very interesting. Thanks for letting us in on that inside information.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, how can we as believers discern whether a dream is like psychologically meaningful or spiritually significant, or what if it's both?
Mm. Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, the first question, I'll kind of answer another question, then answer that question. So, when should we pay attention to a dream?
Yes.
When is it important? And the answer is when there's strong emotion attached to it. It
Mm,
could be negative emotion or it could be positive emotion.
mhm.
If you wake up from a dream laughing, that's still a dream you want to look into. Okay. And
Sure.
sometimes we do. Sometimes we wake up laughing. Or obviously, if you have a nightmare and you wake up and you're in a cold sweat and your heart is racing, yes, you want to pay attention to that. But sometimes you wake up and you'll feel sad. The dream I related to you of the woman who's in the country lane, that was very sad. So her emotion was sadness. But any
Yeah.
dream that has emotion attached to it is important. Okay. And so then what you're really saying is, how can we tell if a dream is from God? The dreams that are from God are very obvious. It's God or an angel saying, the Lord says this, the Lord
Mm,
says that. All right. So those are obvious ones. Now, sometimes God gives us dreams because we need to know something or we need to learn something. So that's where, if I uncover something or I learn something, that's where faith comes in. Okay. So I believe it came from God. Did it? It could be argued, no, it was just your unconscious mind, and maybe it was. But on the other hand, the gift of the unconscious mind is the gift from God. I just say, okay, well, it came through a medium that God gave you, the medium of the unconscious mind that God gave you. What I'd also say is there's an old thing that we use, when I'm doing Bible teaching, I say this all the time: test the spirits. Well, test is what's coming to you, the message that's coming to you. Is that consistent with God's character,
Yeah.
or is it not? Okay. There are things that are clearly not consistent with God's
Sure.
character. We can dream about doing sinful things. It happens. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that from God?
Absolutely.
No, no, that's not his character. He might be trying to show you something. All
Mhm.
right. But it's not his character. For you and me who love God and love Jesus, faith is a given. All right. But for some people, it isn't. And they're the ones that'll have the problem like, whoa, was this from God? Because God really exists. Hopefully, it's God saying, hey, I really do exist.
Yeah.
And I'm going to show it to you. And
Yeah.
that happens. There are testimonies that people will say that's happened for them.
This kind of ties into that same topic here. And you talked a little bit earlier about how, if we want to remember our dreams and connect on that level, just kind of say that, like, I'm going to remember my dreams. I'm going to remember my dreams.
Hmm.
But how can the listeners of this podcast, people that read your book, begin listening more closely to what God might be revealing beneath the surface of our lives?
Okay. So, yeah, the book contains a kind of a step-by-step process for interpreting your dreams. So the
Hmm.
first step is praying. The
Yeah.
first step is prayer. Lord, you show me something here. Give me
Hmm.
wisdom. Give me insight. Help me to know what you're trying to say. Start with that. All right. To get your mind and your heart in the right place. Then you can go ahead and say, how does this relate to my life? As this, as the woman I told you about, she saw right away how it related to her life because,
Hmm.
the family and all those symbols are the things that she had taken away from her. But sometimes, there'll be odd and weird things pop up in a dream. How have I ever seen that? And how does this relate to my life? And what does that mean? Or just what does that mean to me? We go through the steps, but the first step is always connecting with God. And I'm sure plenty of people will read this who don't connect with God and probably will skip that step, and they may get some benefit out of this, but they'll get far more if they pray. As a therapist, I've seen that, some people who come to me are believers and some people are not. But the people who are believers, it may surprise you to learn, do much better in therapy than those who aren't. And the
Yeah.
reason is because we as believers have something to hold on to, something that's a rock, something that never changes. God never changes. Whereas those who are not believers, for them, nothing can be trusted.
Yeah.
There's nothing they trust. And it's much harder to recover a sense of yourself and a sense of mental health when you don't really trust anything.
That's so true. Yeah. That's so true. That's such good advice. And the prayer piece, I feel like we can go through the day and get so busy and just in our general lives, like aside from praying that God reveals things to us, right? But just that is such an important piece of the relationship with God and how we can communicate with it. One of the ways that we can communicate with God. And so I feel like that while it's very important here, like it's just something that we get busy with our lives and that can so easily be the thing that just goes to the wayside.
True. That's why scripture says to pray without ceasing.
Yes.
Does that mean we pray every moment? No, but it means that we pray in every situation.
Right.
We pray often.
Yeah.
And look, this is true for almost all of us, I would say. The first thing we do when a problem arises is we try to solve it ourselves.
Or we
But
go talk
really,
about it, right, with our friends or
yeah,
with our
right,
family or something.
right,
We try to talk it out,
right,
get the solution figured out ourselves.
right.
Yes.
But we never think of, why don't I just go to God with this first? You know,
Right.
why don't I just do that first?
Right.
You can do those other things afterwards, but why don't I just do this first? But we don't think that way. We
Yeah.
think, oh yeah, yeah, I got this, God. I don't need your help here. But no, we always do. We really
Exactly.
do.
Exactly. You really need to be in tune with your body and your mind and yourself and God and just like have that all interconnectedness, I feel like.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, and as I said, that a lot of the interconnectedness takes place through the unconscious mind medium,
Yeah.
more than the conscious mind medium. But usually in combination, but
There is a dream that I had back in, I think it was December. And so I want to ask you about it and kind of hear your thoughts if
sure.
you don't mind.
Okay.
I had a trip planned to visit my grandma in January. And so I did. I went and saw her and visited her. She's 85. And my grandfather passed away, I believe it was 16 years ago.
Okay.
So I just tell you that to give you a little background about my dream.
Okay.
It starts out, we were parked on the side of the road near somebody's house. I don't know whose house it was. There were multiple family members arriving at the same time in different cars. So we were all meeting up at this house, whoever's it was. And I see my grandpa in the flesh, alive, well. He looks so good, so healthy. He passed away. He had had a stroke. He had dementia. He had diabetes. So when he passed, his body was very unhealthy. He couldn't speak. So
Sure.
he was
I
not in great
understand.
condition.
Yes.
So in my dream, the first person I see, I get out of the car and there's my grandpa, like standing by this other car. And he looks good, healthy, strong. Um, and I walk over to him and I give him a hug and I'm like, oh my gosh, grandpa, it's so good to see you. And I hug him and I said, are you ready to have grandma in heaven with you? And he
Yeah.
said, sweetie, I've already seen her. He goes, and she looks beautiful. And I was like, wow. And so I realized as the dream went on that only our family could see my grandpa. And so that was interesting. And then I realized my grandma in my dream had passed away. And that's why we were all together. And that's why he made that comment of, I've already
I've
seen her
seen
and
her.
she looks
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And so then the dream finishes up where we're at a funeral for my grandma and it filled a stadium full of people. And then that was it. And then I woke up and I
Wow.
was like, oh my gosh. So that was in December. And I had plans to go visit her in January. And I thought, what does all this mean? Is she going to pass away before I get to see her? And so I'm just curious, what kind of interpretation is there for that?
Oh, wow. Well, the first thing is, I think you seeing your grandpa in dream, that was a gift from God.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what it was. That's what it was. And because you saw him as you remembered him when he was healthy and strong and vital. That was a gift from God. It reminds me of a dream a friend of mine had.
Hmm.
His wife had already died, but and of course, he was very troubled. She was just the sweetest lady. We all loved her. And he says in this dream, he saw his wife who came up to him, got in his face and said, I'm okay. All right. I'm okay. That was just, for some reason, he had been worried, like, is she okay?
Yeah.
You know, even though he's a believer, is he
Yeah.
okay? And what's going on? And so it was that kind of dream. It was a gift from God, you know. And
Hmm.
the way she said, you have to realize this lady, she was a very physically and mentally strong lady. She had been a gym teacher, and she was just like she would get you going, okay,
Yeah.
no matter what it was, she would get you going. So that was totally within character for her.
Wow.
So it reminds me of that, and you know, your dream. Yeah, as I said, I think that's a gift from God, and maybe it's a message. Hey, you know, you're not going to have her forever,
Mm.
right? And it may be that she will go soon, but guess what? Someone's waiting for her. As they say in Motel 6, someone's leaving the light on for her. Yeah, okay. But
Yeah.
so when you woke up from that dream, how did you feel? Do you remember?
I do. Because I had the trip planned to go see her in January, I was a little concerned because I thought, does this mean that I need to go sooner? So I felt a little worried and concerned for her health.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, that's what I remember feeling. But in regards
Uh-huh.
to my grandpa, I did feel it was good to see him in that form,
Yes.
in, the way that he was, and the way that I remembered him being this like strong, husky,
Yes.
big man that gave the best hugs and wrapped you in and you just got lost in his embrace. And so,
Mm.
yeah, I remember feeling warmth towards that.
Yeah. 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 Well, as I said,
Yeah.
I think the Lord gave you a gift. That's what I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And, now that I'm thinking more about that, when I did go up there in January to see her, she had a doctor's appointment and she did actually find out some health concerns. So that's interesting too. Now that I think
Yeah.
about that I had that dream and then she went to the doctor and there were health concerns that she has to address now. And so
Mhm.
that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Well, good. I'm glad you got
Yeah,
to spend the time with her. Sounds
me
like maybe
too.
you should spend some more time with her.
Yeah, I have a plan. I told her, I said, "I'm coming up twice a year." She's in Illinois, so I said, "I'm coming up twice a year to see you for as long as you're
Nice.
here now. We're
Mhm.
gonna make sure."
That's great. That's wonderful. I'm sure she was very encouraged by that.
Oh, yeah, I love her so much. So, since the podcast is called Between the Now and the Next, is there
Mhm.
any type of waiting period that you experienced in your life? And what did God do in your life during that time? Did he refine you or give you clarity on anything?
Yeah, I mean, there've been a lot, but what I would say is this, I'm married a second time now, okay? But I'm married 23 years, so
Yeah.
it's gone pretty well. But that time between when my first marriage ended and my second one began was about 9 years, okay?
Mhm.
And that was the period of just waiting and looking and trying to do things on my own. Okay.
Mhm.
So I did a lot of dating. I met a lot of women. I was not behaving in a Christian like manner with them.
Mhm.
And nothing good was happening. Yeah. I met some nice women, but nobody who I thought, oh yeah, this is someone I want to spend the rest of my life with. It never happened. I would keep trying harder and harder. I would go to social events. I would
Yeah.
go out to places I thought I could meet women. I did all these things. I finally got so tired and I met some pretty crazy people too. So I got to the point where I just couldn't. I remember praying this prayer. I said, Lord, had enough. I just can't do this. I had a son, I still have a son, but I had a son who I was sharing custody of, but so I was raising him. And I said, Lord, I don't know if you've got anybody for me or not, but I just can't do this anymore. If you have anybody great, I would love that. I'd love to spend the rest of my life with somebody wonderful. But if not, just help me to be a good dad. And what was happening at the time was my ex-wife was moving farther away. So it would be much harder for my son to go back and forth. And this was creating a problem.
Yeah.
So I just said, yeah, just help me to be a good dad and help me do the right thing. So within a week of that time, I canceled all my subscriptions, online dating service subscriptions. I canceled all those, but I had one left because it was called Christian Cafe, a Christian dating site.
Mhm.
And lo and behold, a woman contacted me on that site. She also had a trial membership. As soon as I met her, I said, this is it. This is
Mm.
it. And she said the same thing. But it was like, I got through 9 years of this
Yeah.
and never had that happen. Never once. This is it.
Wow.
And not only that, but where she lived was close to where my ex was moving.
No
So
way.
no, when we got married, we moved there.
Yeah.
And now I was close to my son again. The Lord said, not only am I going to give you that someone, but I'm going to work
Mm.
out this little problem so that you can be close to your son. And all from one prayer. So
That's
that's
amazing.
that's my between now and next story. There you go.
Ooh, that is that is so good. And I'm also like in actually that exact stage of my life right now. I am on the apps, I'm dating,
Yeah.
all of that. So I understand. But my mom always tells me there's a meme that goes around or a picture online that she sees and she sends it to me every time she sees it. And it is a little girl holding a little teddy bear and saying, "But I love it." And then Jesus is standing in front of her and behind his back, he has this huge teddy bear. And he says, "But do you trust me?" And my mom just keeps telling me, you can have this little teddy bear that you're holding on to. If you find somebody like it, make sure that this is the person that you have been looking for, that you have been waiting
Right.
for. And don't just settle because I tried that once and a book came out of it. So we know
Yes.
how that turned out. But she's like, just hold out for that big teddy bear that the Lord has for you.
I love that. I love that. I think your mom is spot on with that. And I mean, the story I told you, God was
Mhm.
saying, look, trust me. I got
That's
this,
it.
I
That's
got
it.
this. And he could finally see that my heart was in the right place.
Mhm.
I wasn't catting around anymore. I wasn't doing any of that stuff. He could finally see that my heart was in the right place and I wanted the right things. And
Mhm.
he showered me. When we got married, what I said during our vows is, "You are a gift from God."
Mm,
And she is.
that's it. That's so special. That's so special. What a great
Yes.
story.
Yes.
Well, the last question I have for you, and you are my finale guest for season 1 of my podcast. So
Okay.
thank you for coming on and doing this finale episode with me.
Great pleasure.
But this is the question that I asked all my guests for season 1, and it is, if you could go back and tell your younger self anything, how
Mhm.
old would you be and what would you tell him?
Wow. I mean, there are a lot of things I could do, I could say, but I guess what I would say is, I told you I was married twice. When I got married the first time, the reason I got married was that I didn't want to be lonely. What was I, 27? And I didn't want to be lonely. I saw my friends, all my friends, my college friends and whatever, getting married and starting to have families, and it just wasn't happening for me. And I didn't want to be lonely. So, when I finally had a girlfriend so what I would say is, um, be patient, be patient
Yeah.
because, the right situation and the right person will come along if you will be patient and keep your mind and your heart open and keep your mind and heart open to God, who will show you things through dreams and
Yes.
through other methods, who will
Yes.
show you things. So because I was impatient, I married someone who was totally not suitable to me, and it was not a happy time. Yes, my son came out of it, which is a wonderful thing. He's a
Yes.
great guy, and I'll never regret that. But be
Yes.
patient because, ironically, I could have met because of the geography being what it was. I could have met the woman who would later become my wife at that time, but because I was so anxious and because didn't want to be lonely, I jumped at the first chance. So don't
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, that's great advice. That's great advice. It's hard. It's hard to be
Yes.
patient and sit in the middle of
Yes, it
it,
is. Yes, it
but
is.
it's great advice. Great advice. Well, I am so thankful that we got to connect and I got to have you on to have this conversation and we got to talk about your work and your book. And I hope everyone will go out and buy it. And I'll have a link in the show notes for people to go
Oh,
out and
please do.
purchase
Yeah,
that.
thank you.
So,
I appreciate
yes,
that.
absolutely. And just thank you again so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom with us.
Well, thank you so much. It's just been great, and God bless you.
Well, my friends, that's a wrap. That is a wrap on this finale episode for season 1 of Between the Now and the Next podcast. Can you believe it? This is the end of season 1. We have done 20 episodes, you guys. 20. I'm so thankful for everyone that shows up and takes the opportunity to listen to these podcast episodes where I get to have these amazing conversations with wonderful guests. I will never get over people tuning in and hearing these conversations. Thank you so much for being an incredible and important part of this podcast. I could not continue to do this or find the motivation to do this if I didn't have people tuning in. So thank you. Thank you. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. So this conversation today with Ara was so incredibly fascinating to me. I really hope that you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed recording it. And I know that we have all had that dream that makes us wake up and say, what in the world was that about? So after listening to today's conversation, I do hope that you're able to discern that maybe your dream wasn't so random after all. And maybe it was actually an invitation of sorts. I love how Ara reminded us that God can use so many avenues to speak to us. It can be through scripture, through wise counsel, through our emotions, through our prayers, and yes, even through our dreams. So when we begin to actually understand the unconscious mind and the ways that our faith and our minds intertwine, we start to see that nothing is wasted. Not our questions, not our hidden emotions, not even the symbols and stories that unfold in the night. Be sure to check the show notes to connect with Ara and learn more about his work as a psychotherapist and Christian counselor. You can also find the link to purchase his book, Dreaming God's Way. If this episode resonated with you, I would love to hear about it. Send me a message on social media or through my website because I want to keep this conversation going. Did you know that I'm also an author? I wrote a 90-day devotional titled Healing on the Horizon. I've included a link in the show notes where you can purchase a copy of my book. Maybe you or someone you know needs this exact resource right now. Whether this conversation stirred curiosity about dream interpretation, challenged the way you think about the mind and spirit, or simply reminded you that God is always communicating, I pray that it leaves you feeling seen, guided, and deeply cared for. Would you consider sharing today's episode with a friend, leaving a review, or just giving the podcast a follow because you don't want to miss what's coming next? All of these actions really do help podcasts like mine get out into the world and reach more listeners. I have a special episode coming up. Season 2 will start in April, but there will be one episode released to be part of a nationwide event called Podcastathon. So be on the lookout for that special episode with a special cause that's close to my heart. So I'm excited for all of you to have a listen. So as always, thanks again for listening and for being a huge part of this podcast for all of season 1. Until next time, until April, until season 2 releases, except for that special episode I'm releasing, keep living between the now and the next.